feels like it actually takes to get to that point. And so it is, it's exciting to know that we are going to have college football coming up this weekend. And so we'll talk about a number of these games here over the next handful of days. But just a quick look ahead, if you're wondering what's coming up this Saturday, you are going to have, as Damian said, Farmageddon. That's the big one. At 11 a.m. on ESPN, as that'll be over there in Dublin, Ireland, where Iowa State will take on Kansas State. And this is actually a top 25 matchup. If you haven't been already looking ahead to this one, is you'll have number 22 Iowa State and number 17 Kansas State there. Kansas State, a slight favorite right now, 3-point favorite there, according to most places. So that's going to be the big one that'll get you started at 11 a.m. Then at 3 o'clock on Saturday, you have Idaho State and UNLV. And maybe you're thinking, I know it's the first weekend of college football, but I just don't know what the appeal is. It's Dan Mullen's first game as the head coach of UNLV. So that's certainly something that I know a lot of you will be interested in. Then you're going to have at 5:30 Fresno State and Kansas doing battle. Can Kansas kind of bounce back from a rough year in the Big 12 last year? Then at 6 o'clock, you're going to have Sam Houston taking on Western Kentucky without TJ Finley. So I know nobody's going to want to watch that because that's it. Why, that's what we're all looking for with Western Kentucky, right? But you're going to have Sam Houston and Western Kentucky there doing battle at 6 o'clock. And then the final game of the day on CBS will be Stanford and Hawaii. And Hawaii actually a 2.5-point favorite in that one as it stands right now. Stanford, they're in a rough spot right now.
They are. Adjusting to the ACC. They just lost their starting quarterback to Auburn in Ashton Daniels.
Yeah, and they lost their head coach, so they have Frank Reich.
Yeah. So so they're following no hard times. What time is that game?
6:30.
Oh, so it's the early.
No, it's not like 11:30 at night or anything like that. You don't have to worry about that.
Okay, because I remember
it's reasonable.
Yeah, a couple years ago we had Vanderbilt in Hawaii, and Vanderbilt took that trip down to Honolulu. You had to stay up pretty late in order to get that ball game. So I'm glad they moved it to, an early kickoff for the Rainbow Warriors.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that's because it's week 0, and so you have a little more leeway maybe with when you're going to be able to get those games in. So, yeah, but that's the good news. So you're going to have every game. You're going to start at 11. Last game kicks off at 6:30. So you're going to have a nice full day on Saturday of college football to look forward to. But we know a lot of you are just looking forward to what's going to happen when Auburn and Alabama finally hit the field for week 1. But before they can do that, they have to get through fall camp, which included the second scrimmages of the fall for both Auburn and Alabama. So we'll start with the big news, though, if you somehow missed it from yesterday. And that, of course, being that Jam Miller has broken his collarbone. So he's going to miss the season opener for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And I was talking to somebody down in Tuscaloosa yesterday, and I was told that basically the hope or the belief is that he will be back for the Georgia game. That's kind of going to be I know they said there's no exact timetable right now, but that is, I guess, internally the hope is that he would be back for the Georgia game, which is week 5. It's the 4th game of the season, but it's week 5 because they both have a bye before that. So that gives you a little over a month if you're Jam Miller to recover because we know that he got worked on yesterday with the collarbone. So a little over a month for him if he were to be able to be available for the Georgia game. So this is what Kalen DeBoer had to say about the injury yesterday. They just released a statement. It says, quote, Jam Miller suffered an upper body injury in Saturday's scrimmage and went in for a procedure on Saturday evening. He should recover fully with a timetable for his return yet to be determined, end quote. But again, as I told you, the belief down in Tuscaloosa is that he could be back for that Georgia game in week 5. So what does that mean with him being out? It means that Richard Young is likely going to be your running back 1 there for the Florida State game. But I know Daniel Hill is another guy that's really kind of been in the mix there. From what I understand, maybe there's some players that on the offensive side maybe lean a little more towards Richard Young or maybe there's just a little more chemistry there. So I would think that maybe he would get the look at least to go into the Florida State game, and then maybe they just kind of go from there based on how everybody performs. But, yeah, Richard Young and Daniel Hill look like they're going to be fighting it out for the RB1 status. You do have Dre Washington, the guy that transferred in from Louisiana this year. He'll probably be the 3rd string back, which this is why you bring in those kinds of guys in the transfer portal, right, because of situations like this. And then, of course, A.K. Deere, another guy there in the mix as well. But he's a younger guy who maybe showed some flashes over the weekend, so I wouldn't expect a necessarily a big role for him early on, but another guy that's there in that running back room that has a lot of potential. So that's going to be big for Alabama to replace because if you look at now going into the season, so last year Alabama ran for 2,260 yards last year. Of those, 1,842 of those yards came from Jalen Milroe, Jam Miller, and Justice Hayes. Those guys are gone. That's 82% of your rushing yards last year and 82% of your carries that are now gone and out the door. So at the end of the day, my main takeaway from this is somebody's going to have to step up.
Yep.
Whoever it is, somebody in that room, and preferably two guys, are going to have to step up in that room because, we saw the weight that Jam Miller had put on, and we had heard good things about him in fall camp. And so not saying that these other guys behind him can't get it done, but we just, they don't have experience. So we're going to have to, they're going to have to prove us all or show to all of us that they can handle the load.
Yeah, and it's the unfortunate thing of fall camp and the nature of the game that is football. You have to deal with injuries, and I think a lot of people had some high expectations for Jam Miller and having him return for this offense. And kind of if you notice the trend of year 2 under Kalen DeBoer and everywhere he's been, that's when you see the biggest jump because it feels as though everybody is starting to gel, everybody's starting to click. And now it's kind of a running back by committee. It's okay, well, we're losing our bell cow. How many of you guys, somebody's got to step up and take these reps because we have to be able to run the football behind this offensive line.
Yep.
So now it's just kind of, okay, we'll piece it all together. Somebody may separate, and that's the thing about fall camp is that's how you know how much depth that you have at certain positions in situations like this. And, we wish Jam a speedy recovery, but like you said, it throws a little bit of a wrinkle in week 1. And, if you're Ty Simpson, that's kind of one of your kind of go-to guys right there that's down. But you've worked with Richard Young, with the threes and stuff last year in the backup role situation. So you kind of know exactly what you're looking at. But I think collectively it shouldn't be that much of an issue. But the health of his caliber because we know what Jam Miller has been able to do the past couple seasons. It does kind of give you a little bit of a gut punch. But I think if you got him before Georgia, I think you'll be pretty happy.
I was about to say, I think that's obviously the big one is you want him when you start SEC play. You would love to have him now, of course, but I'll be honest, like my kind of belief, and maybe I've been more confident in the running back room than others have been, and I know so. I've heard some people say, what are you talking about with this running back room because they were terrible last year, and while were they up to maybe the traditional standard for what Alabama running back room would be? No, but it was also the most involved we had ever really seen a quarterback in the run game to where that role just wasn't there, that need wasn't there necessarily from the tailbacks. But a lot of my confidence this year came from Jam Miller because I thought he was a guy that if you give him the ball a little bit more, more people would start to understand, okay, this is a dude that has a lot of talent. He just didn't have the opportunity last year. So now that he's gone, they're going to have to step up. And again, hearing from people around Tuscaloosa and around the program that, there's some people that kind of look at this running back room right now and go, this might be, the worst spot that room's been in the last 15 years or so, just because you don't have any experience, guys. You have a lot of guys that they have talent, right? They have potential, but somebody's going to have to prove that they're ready to show that potential right now on the field when they step off and face Florida State in 12 days there in Tallahassee. So we'll wait and see what happens. But, yeah, like Damian said, hopefully praying for a speedy recovery for Jam Miller. And hopefully he's able to get back on the field sooner rather than later. But Alabama going to have to look for some answers there in the running game here as they're going to take on Florida State, Louisiana Monroe, and Wisconsin early on in the season before, of course, hopefully getting Jam back for that Georgia game in Week 5. So that was the big injury news you got over the weekend. A little bit of injury news on the Auburn front that we'll get to as well. Nothing you need to be concerned about long-term or anything, just some guys getting held out of practice. But we did have the scrimmages again for both Auburn and Alabama, so we've got to tell you some notes on what happened on the Plains as well as in Tuscaloosa, and we got to hear from Kalen DeBoer over the weekend, so we have some of that for you as well. But we'd love to hear from you, your thoughts on the running back situation at Alabama. How confident are you? How concerned are you with Jam Miller being out? Maybe that makes you, change your perspective on the Florida State game. Maybe you think Florida State now should be the favorite in that opener because Jam Miller is going to be out. But we'd love to hear from you, 205-834-9450. And as we roll along here on this Monday morning, we'll give you the latest from fall camp for both Alabama and Auburn with scrimmage 2 in the books. You're listening to Morning JOX right here on JOX. Welcome back into Morning JOX here on your Monday morning. Conrad and Damian here with you, recapping everything you may have missed over the weekend, particularly with the second scrimmages of fall camp, as you had Auburn on the field on Friday, Alabama on the field on Saturday. And if you missed it, we just kind of spent some time breaking down what it means potentially for Alabama heading into the season. But Jam Miller, the starting running back there for Alabama, he announced that he broke his collarbone in the scrimmage on Saturday. And he has already gotten that taken care of medically, and he's already on the road to recovery. And the hope is that he will potentially be back for the Georgia game in Week 5. So that would give him a little over a month to recover. That's not guaranteed or anything like that. That can always change, but that is just internally what I have been told. The hope is that he will be back for that matchup as Alabama will kick off SEC play against Georgia in Athens. So that would certainly be a big return for Alabama heading into that game. But we do want to go down to Auburn. We'll get back to Alabama and some of the things that went on with their scrimmage in just a few moments. But let's go down to Auburn because they were on the field on Friday, and so they will have one more scrimmage coming up this Friday. And as we know, that is what they're going to use to essentially simulate what next Friday or 2 Fridays from now will look like as they are in Waco taking on Baylor for their first game of the season. So you're going to go through, essentially it is going to be a game day-like simulation for the Auburn Tigers. They're going to eat together. They're going to get dressed together. They're going to go through walkthroughs. They're going to go through warm-ups. Everything that you would normally do on a game day, that's how they're going to operate this upcoming Friday. But how about this last Friday at the scrimmage? This is what was making the rounds out of Auburn's second scrimmage. Again, the defense seeming to win the day, as has kind of been the common theme in fall camp for Auburn. That especially the front seven continues to dominate. Overall, the offensive line, not a great day for the Auburn Tigers, but you would expect that when you hear about how good the defensive line continues to be. But ultimately, defense started off strong. Offense would settle in a couple times. I'm sure a lot of you saw that great pass on social media from Jackson Arnold to Cam Coleman. So I heard that Cam Coleman had multiple touchdown catches. And then had another catch that was in the red zone and set up a touchdown run for Auburn. So a big day for Cam Coleman. Jackson Arnold looked like he made some good throws, and after he kind of settled in and looked a little more comfortable. Brandon Frazier, the tight end there, had one of the bigger plays of the day as well, so that's something good to hear if you are an Auburn fan for sure. But again, the defense kind of standing out, especially the defensive line and the linebackers continuing to just really, really impress a lot of people that were on hand there in Auburn. The explosiveness of that group. And again, as we talked about, a lot of those younger guys, just how athletic they are, how freaky, how quick they are, all that good stuff is just really, really turning some heads there in camp for Auburn. Because again, that was one of the bigger question marks going into the fall, and it seems like that has been a really, really good sign. I also heard Jeremiah Cobb looked really, really good. The expectation, and barring any injury or anything for him, is that he will be, in my belief, the starting running back for Auburn heading into that Baylor game. But Darrell Robinson continues to get reps and figures to be in the mix. And the same thing with Omar Mabson, who is a guy that is, at this point, expected to contribute immediately. Not saying that he's going to have the most carries against Baylor, but he should have some carries against Baylor. It would be a big surprise if you don't see him on the field there in that first game. So that's good to hear from the running backs. And then quickly, a couple of injury things, just guys that were held out of the scrimmage that we already kind of knew about. But you had at the wide receiver position, Eric Singleton dealing with a thigh bruise. So he was held out. Then you have Perry Thompson, who didn't participate either, dealing with a knee brace. Or he was out. He was limited, dealing with a knee brace on. And then you had Cam Coleman, who was in a non-contact jersey. But again, when he was out there, he was looking absolutely dominant. And then, of course, as I said, the final scrimmage for Auburn coming up on Friday. So anything that you hear there, Damian, that gives you excitement, that gives you pause, just hearing how things kind of going in camp for Auburn, as now at this point, you kind of got your depth chart set, a lot of it after the second scrimmage, and now it's just trying to keep guys healthy and, again, simulating that game situation on Friday and getting ready for Baylor.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I'd be very optimistic. If you're hearing that your defense is really starting to gel well, And maybe they're not. And again, I hadn't been there to see exactly what they're doing. If they're running kind of like their base stuff and having success, that's got to feel pretty good if you're DJ Durkin of, okay, when we start to, twist it up and show some different things, we're going to be cooking. We're going to be rolling. And the fact that you're gaining depth. I think Omar Mapson has probably had the best camp out of anybody for somebody that's young, that's just got there on campus. And he's reached this point now where you cannot deny him playing time. Like, it's, Coach, if all I'm doing is getting better and better day after day and my name is still continuously being called, yeah, we're not going to sit here and say that he's going to be running it 20, 30 times a game, but he's definitely earned his way into this running back, I guess you'd say, carousel. But, to hear Jeremiah Cobb, somebody that's been kind of dinged up earlier on, to start to, show that he can be one of those guys as well. The biggest thing is just getting the receivers healthy, getting your playmakers healthy, because everybody was up in arms on Thursday going into Friday when, Hugh Freeze was slamming his visor down because he was frustrated with Jackson Arnold. Then to flip it around in the scrimmage, it's like, okay, yeah, he's dropping dimes out there on the field. So I think all in all, you have to feel pretty confident about what you expect. And, this Friday is going to be game-like. It's going to be the game script of how everything's going to operate. And now, like you said, we're starting to see what the depth is going to look like. So if you're an Auburn fan, I would feel extremely optimistic of how everything's going to be looking against Baylor come next Friday.
Yeah, certainly seems like Auburn's had a pretty good camp. Again, got to be more consistent offensively speaking. But I think there's probably about 133 other teams in the country that right now would tell you the exact same thing. So good day for Auburn there on the practice field on Friday. Sounds like the defense, again, if you're just now tuning in, continues to get the better of the offense. But that's been a common theme throughout fall camp for the Auburn Tigers. And again, I think a lot of people had some bigger question marks, maybe offensively or defensively speaking, than offensively, just because you had a lot of guys, a lot of new faces in the front seven, and they continue to impress. So how about on the other side of the state, since we were already talking about the Jam Miller injury, how did Alabama fare in their second scrimmage of the fall, which took place on Saturday? Well, similarly to Auburn, the defense ultimately, from the people that were there, seemed to win the day overall. The offense did start off hot. You had the first-team offense started off the scrimmage with 2 touchdown drives against the first-team defense. One of those was a Ty Simpson, touchdown pass to Ryan Williams of about 20 yards. So that's certainly a good connection to see there. You had the second-team offense have a little bit of success. I was told that both Ty Simpson and Austin Mack had really, really good days on Saturday. But then ultimately, after the first 4 drives or so, that all ended in either a touchdown or a field goal, the defense really took over, and that's when they started to clamp down and ultimately had the better performance of the 2 units over the course of the second scrimmage. Offensive line had some issues for Alabama, namely with Geno Vandermark, one of those guys we've seen competing for the guard spot that was left by Tyler Booker. But he was playing right guard this weekend because Jaden Roberts was out yet again, as they're still being cautious with him. I think he was dealing with a concussion, if I'm not mistaken, from earlier in the week. So a little bit of concern there on the offensive line. No turnovers by the quarterback, so no interceptions, no fumbles, anything like that. But tight end Josh Cuevas did have 1 fumble, so maybe that's good to hear, right? The defense forcing something after not getting any in the first scrimmage, but still no interceptions from the quarterbacks there. I was told that Dejon Lee, the freshman cornerback who's like 6'4", he's absolutely massive, continues to really stand out. I mean, how could he not with how big he is? But yeah, a lot of people really impressed with him as a freshman. And then linebackers, again, just like Auburn, heard really good things about the linebacker group. And apparently, according to people that were there, Noah Carter, who, if you remember, that was one of the guys that came over in the recruiting with Kalen DeBoer last year when he first got to Tuscaloosa. But he's now a redshirt freshman, I believe. But he had 2 sacks during the scrimmage on Saturday, and a lot of people said that he may have been the best player on the field, defensively speaking, during that scrimmage. So good to hear that from a young guy there out of the linebacker core. And then maybe the biggest concern outside of what you got from Geno Vandermark and some of his struggles, though, continues to be special teams, everybody's favorite, right? Some issues with the kicking on Saturday, and again, the general consensus seems to be these guys are pretty good in practice, and then when you get into a scrimmage, not so much. And let's be honest, if you're going to struggle in a scrimmage, you're potentially going to struggle when you got 80,000 to 100,000 fans screaming when you're on the field as well. So certainly something to keep an eye on there for Alabama, as special teams still seems like it has a ways to go.
Yeah, got to clean that up.
Yes.
And, as much as we like to bully, specialists and things,
they're important.
And this is the reason why I have so many issues is, if you ever go to a practice and you kind of see what kickers and punters and things they do while everybody else is kind of locked in, and then when we need you, like a scrimmage to hit a field goal, that's where the frustrations come in. It's how about you lock it in a little bit? Yeah, this is live. But no, everything that you've heard from both scrimmages for Auburn and Alabama, you're hearing that, after a couple touchdowns, defense starts to lock in, and it's good. To me, I think it's beneficial when you go ones versus ones. When you have, like, good on good,
absolutely,
that's when you start to see, all right, okay, somebody – and again, for guys to step up and maybe have to jump into that one role. And again, we know what we're going to get from Ryan Williams. I think that there's a clear consensus that we know what we're going to get, and we want to hear, him and Damani Jackson going at it, one-on-ones and see what they look like, because it's iron sharpening iron on both sides. So I think that collectively, for everything that we're hearing from these scrimmages, both fan bases should feel pretty confident about how they're sitting right now. And again, the Jan Miller injury is going to, throw a little bit of a wrinkle in there, but I think what you have as far as running back by committee and all the weapons that you have at the receiver positions, you should still be fine starting the season off.
Yeah, you would certainly hope so there. So yeah, seems like some solid days on the scrimmage field for both Auburn and Alabama over the weekend. But we do have quickly here. Let's hear from Kalen DeBoer as he addressed the media after the scrimmage. A reminder, you're going to hear from Hugh Freeze. He's expected to speak around 11:30 today, so we'll have that for you on three-man front. But Kalen DeBoer speaking after the scrimmage on Saturday. This is just kind of his recap of what he saw during that second scrimmage for the Tide.
Offense did some nice things early. Has to do a better job of sustaining it. And the defense doing a good job of responding. That's really general, but that's kind of how the scrimmage went. So got a lot of red zone work in at the end, slowly building up, and got some reps on that. Tuesdays and Thursdays practice was really good from some live action. So from Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, and again today, we've got a lot of tackling in, a lot of work, full pads. And so I like just kind of the stamina we've had that way, and just how much tackling we've had.
Yeah, so there's Kalen DeBoer, just his recap of the second scrimmage there for Alabama. I mentioned earlier Jaden Roberts, he was held out there on the offensive line. James Smith, he was held out again on the defensive line. So that's kind of your injury update there. And then, of course, we know Jan Miller and what happened with him now. But how about Ty Simpson? I told you Ty Simpson, onlookers said he looked very, very impressive on Saturday. But what about the head coach? What did he see from his new QB1 on Saturday?
I thought he came out and executed the offense. Just continues to be steady. Finds his times to make the plays. And, today he actually used his feet again. And that's, I think, something that people will probably underestimate as we go through the year, just what his ability to make plays and keep plays alive. But, I thought he was steady. He was consistent. Probably a higher completion percentage than what he had last scrimmage. Maybe not quite as explosive. I think that's a tribute to our defense and what they did as well. So good both scrimmages for him, and just continue to make the progress. And I think building the team and getting the momentum going.
So there you go, Kalen DeBoer with some compliments for his new quarterback as he had a pretty good day there on Saturday in the second scrimmage. And then also the final note for Alabama is they did scrimmage a little later in the day, and Kalen DeBoer said that was to simulate a little bit more of what the game environment will be in Tallahassee, just in terms of the heat and what they're going to have to deal with on the field. So I think that was a good idea, because if you were outside this weekend, it was hot.
It was.
It was hot. So so I think that's a good idea there for the Alabama Crimson Tide, and something that they will be competing with along with Auburn for this upcoming year is a spot in the 12-team college football playoff. But Damian, what if I told you that there are people out there that want a 28-team college football playoff? Who is it that wants it, and what would that look like? We'll tell you the ridiculous idea of one conference next here on JOX.
.635 here on Morning JOX. Damian Mitchell alongside Conrad Van Order, and of course you as well, our wonderful listeners. 205-834-9830 9450. Recapped earlier on both Auburn and Alabama scrimmages over the weekend. And then Conrad, he hit us with a major tease because, again, we talk about this season where there's a 12-team playoff, and there's a certain league that says 12 ain't enough, Conrad.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Damian. So if you didn't see the story over the weekend, it's been reported by Yahoo, ESPN as well. But the Big Ten, and this is something that doesn't seem like it's anywhere close to, I guess, coming to fruition, but at least in the early planning stages of what this could potentially look like. But Big Ten executives have been discussing a 24 and 28 team college football playoff model that would feature up to 7 automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten and the SEC, 5 automatic qualifiers for the Big 12 and the ACC. You would then have 2 for the top 2 group of 6 teams, and then 2 at-large selections. So again, you would have 7 Big Ten, and this would be in the 28-team model, right? You would have as many as 7 Big Ten teams, 7 SEC teams for the automatic bids. Then you'd have 5 Big 12, 5 ACC, 2 group of 6 teams, and then 2 at-large teams. So Notre Dame, obviously, and someone else. I think we can assume that's how it would go most years. So that's certainly something in terms of how it would break down from, I guess, if you're looking at how it would play out on the field. You would have first round buys for a number of teams. So you'd have the top 4 seeds would get a first round bye, which is essentially how it works now, or how it worked last year, but now going with the straight seeding format. It would also eliminate conference championship games the first weekend of December, because then you would obviously have to start playing these games much earlier, because you'd have, double the amount of teams that you currently have as it stands right now. But it would also, let's see, because again, part of it too is trying to not have a conflict with the NFL schedule, as that, because that's, been a common theme. That was something we saw last year and something that people are not happy about. But it does also mean that potentially the first 2 rounds of the college football playoff in this format would have games on campus, as opposed to now where you just have that opening round. Well, now you would have the first 2 rounds would have games on campus, which that is a big thing for me. I will say that, like, if we're going to keep expanding the playoff, I think we need to play more of these games on site, on campus, because first of all, I think the atmosphere of it is just incredible, but it's an awesome experience for those fan bases, and it just makes it, I don't know, it makes it feel more authentic to me if you get to have these games on your own campus and you kind of get rewarded for finding your way into the college football playoff there. And then, of course, you would have 6 major bowls that would rotate between host sites for other playoff games. You would have a rotating national championship game site. And then you have, and that's kind of, I guess, the general synopsis of what you would have on the 28-team concept. And that seems to be the one that most people are latching on to. But again, with all of this, it's in its infancy. This is not something that's believed to be enacted anytime soon. Again, we're still trying to figure out how to just get from 12 to 16, let alone 24 or 28. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, Damian, because I'll be honest, I get it. It's a money thing, right? This is why you would want to go this route, is more games equals more money, and the TV networks are happy. I think this is a bad idea. And the reason for that, and I know, you have people like Eli Drinkwitz who say, well, is it a good idea if only 12% of the league is able to make it into the postseason every year? You look at other leagues and that's not comparable. Here's my thing. All right. Are there 12 teams this year that you think can win a national championship in college football? Because there are not 12 teams this year that I think can win a national championship in football. So there sure as heck aren't 28 teams that I think can win a national championship in football. So why should we continue to expand? And you can make the same argument for going to 16, and I don't necessarily hate the idea of just staying at 12, but do you really believe that by going out to 28 teams that you're going to have 28 schools that could actually win a national championship? No, you're going to have probably about 8, just like you do now.
Yep, I agree with that 100%. It's hard for me to sit here and give you a list of 24 to 28 teams that could potentially win a national championship, because again, you have to handle your business in the regular season in order to prove that you're one of the best teams. And I don't know where the Big Ten is coming up with this kind of situation. And I mean, Eli Drinkwitz tried to bring numbers and stuff into it that only a certain percentage gets a chance to play for a national title, because those certain number, that small percentage, is exactly what they did. They handled their business. They did exactly what they needed to do to be warranted a position in the college football playoff. Like, I'm not all about, like, okay, if the sixth ranked, if the seventh best team in the SEC deserves to be in the college football playoff, then what was the whole regular season for? It's like, oh, okay, we can be in the middle of the pack and still find ourselves competing for a national title. No, that's not how this works. Like, it's not how it goes. I think expanding it to 12 was fine. Like, it's fine if you want to get it to 16. Okay, but that's kind of like the cutoff point of teams that can legitimately have a chance. Like, okay, say if you're like the 18th spot and you get to host a home game and you get blown out on your home field, it's going to be like, okay, so why did you deserve to even be there? Like, I do not.
And we had that argument last year with 12 teams.
Right.
Certain teams.
It's like, nah, I don't think that we can realistically sit down and say, yeah, these are 28 teams that have a chance to win a national title. No, I just do not agree with it at all.
Do you think that Baylor could win a national championship this year in college football?
No.
Well, that's who would come in at 28th in the AP poll right now. In terms of, we're talking Baylor, Utah, BYU, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Boise State, Indiana. I mean, again, these are all great. They're all good programs, right? Where we all expect that they're going to have pretty good seasons this year. But do you think they can win a national championship? Do you think that Illinois can win a national championship this year?
I wouldn't put my money on it.
That's the 12th best team in the country right now, according to the AP poll. Do you think that Miami can win a national championship this year?
They could.
Do you think that Arizona State could win a national championship this year?
Cam Scadaboo's not there, so no.
Do you think Notre Dame could win a national championship this year? See, I think right now, if you look at the top 10, Texas, Penn State, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, Notre Dame, Oregon, Alabama, LSU, Miami, you could talk me into any one of those teams probably winning the national championship this year. Now, some obviously way more than others, right? I think it's fair that you would have more questions about, maybe the Oregons and the Alabamas and the Miamis of the world with new quarterbacks and throw Georgia in there than maybe you would about a Texas or a Penn State or a Clemson. But, I mean, that's it. We're not even filling out a 12-team bracket there. Your Arizona State is 11, Illinois is 12. I don't think Michigan can win a national title this year. I don't think South Carolina can win a title. I think those teams can make the playoff, but I don't think they can win a national championship, and that's kind of where the separator is. So just an interesting story that came out over the weekend. Again, we're still just trying to figure out how to get to 16, so I wouldn't worry about this for right now, but I think it's a horrible idea. I hope that we don't ultimately do this, at least not for a very, very long time. I think 12 is honestly a pretty good place to stay at, but as we know, if there's more money on the table, then expansion is going to continue to happen. So we'd love to hear from you, your thoughts on a 28-team college football playoff, as well as your thoughts on scrimmages over the weekend for Alabama and Auburn. How worried are you, if you're an Alabama fan, about the Jam Miller injury, as he is going to miss the Florida State game and expected that he's going to miss a few games there at the start of the season for Alabama. So we'd love to hear from you, 205-834-9450, and that is exactly where we will go next on Morning JOX. Welcome back in to Morning JOX here on your Monday morning. Appreciate you making us a part of your day each and every day here on JOX. Conrad and Damian with you here for a little bit longer before we hand you off to McElroy and Kublik in the morning, as I'm sure they will be very excited, just like we are, to officially be here for the start of game week, and week 0 at least, for college football. So 5 days away from having actual real live tackle football at the college level on your television screens. Is again 11 a.m. this Saturday. You're going to get a top 25 matchup in week 0. You don't get those very often, but you get a top 25 matchup there for Farmageddon, and we are very, very excited to get this season underway. And we are going to get to some of your text here in just a moment, because I know a lot of you weighing in on not only the potential for a 28-team college football playoff, but what we heard over the weekend from Alabama and Auburn as well. But quickly, did want to give a quick update on some NFL news that involves former Alabama and Auburn players, because you had a surprising amount of that over the weekend, actually. So yesterday, how about this? The Texans traded John Mechie to the Philadelphia Eagles. So he's reunited with Devontae Smith there. Granted, he's probably about fifth on the depth chart there in Philadelphia, behind Dotson and who's there? Oh, they got Johnny Wilson from Florida State. The tall guy. So John Mechie, he finds himself in Philadelphia, where we'll see if he can find himself a little role there. But
it's essentially just full of Georgia and Alabama.
Exactly.
Alumni. So.
Yes. Philadelphia has a type, and they are the defending Super Bowl champions,
Exactly.
so it certainly seems to be working for them. So John Mechie traded to the Eagles. Then you find the news that the Commanders yesterday, they announced that, or I guess it leaks out, that they are shopping Brian Robinson Jr., the former Alabama running back. So there is one name in particular that if you watch or keep up with fantasy football, there's one name that has started to pop up in that Commanders running back room that if you know, you know. But Brian Robinson Jr., he appears that he is going to be on the trade block. And then how about Keandre Lambert-Smith? This dude continues to find a role for himself in the preseason. Another big day. He had 2 catches for 66 yards, including a 37-yard reception over the weekend as the Chargers fell to the Rams 23-22. But this is a guy now, you have to imagine, he is going to have some sort of a role. I'm not going to say he's going to have a big role, but I think he's very clearly cemented himself a roster spot. But I think he's going to have some sort of a role in this offense because he seems to have a good rapport with the quarterbacks there. And let's be honest, outside of Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnson, we've seen that.
Right. Yeah, we've seen this.
No.
No.
But you have Trey Harris, who they also drafted from Ole Miss, so a couple of young guys there. But yeah, certainly an opportunity nonetheless there for Keandre Lambert-Smith. So good to see him continuing to have success in the preseason. But let's get to your text here as we close things up today. And we will start off with Tim from Coleman, who says, wait, I just wanted to make sure I heard correctly. Did y'all say that TJ Finley is actually playing in the same place 2 years in a row? You did hear that incorrectly because he's not.
Oh,
no, I was saying he's not at Western Kentucky, and I know that's disappointing for a lot of people that wanted to tune in for that. But this text coming in from Gadsden says, Richard Young's a beast, maybe not as good of a receiving back as Jam, but definitely should be 3 to 4 yards per carry. Yeah, let's go 4 to 5 yards per carry, and then maybe that'll make some people a little bit happier. But yeah, I think Richard Young, certainly we've heard a lot of good things about him, but gotta prove it on the field. This text coming in says, with or without Jam Miller, we're still going to kick Florida State's butt.
There we go.
Okay.
That's kind of mindset you need to have.
I like it. Let's see. This text rolling in, it says, maybe the reason Auburn's defense is looking so good is because they're playing against the Auburn offense. Okay. Let's see. This text rolls in, says, Jay Crawford will be a first-round pick in the NFL draft in 2027 as a true shutdown corner. That, in terms of who I think I've heard the most positive things about out of Auburn fall camp, it's probably Jay Crawford.
Hey, and that's what they need too. A lockdown guy out there at corner, no matter what team you're going against, you know, you feel confident on that side of the field. You can feel confident with that matchup. Absolutely. Let's go, Jay.
Let's see. Jimmy chimes in. He says, I had climbed on the Bama hype train for this year, but with Jam getting injured, I just don't know if they're going to be able to find their running game, at least early in the season. Certainly going to have some guys step up, as we've talked about this morning. This text comes in. So now the Big Ten is proposing a 24 or 28 team playoff model. Seems that Eli Drinkwitz's 30-team model wasn't as crazy of an idea after all.
No, it's still a crazy idea.
No, it is.
Yeah,
it's just
still crazy.
I was about to say, just because 2 people come up with it doesn't mean it's not crazy. It just means multiple people are crazy. But no, I mean, that is a fair point. Let's see. Someone says, do an 8-team playoff. The playoff committee picks the 8 teams after all bowl-eligible teams play their bowl game. Okay, so you would do like the normal season, then everyone plays the bowl game, and then after the bowl game, you pick the 8 best teams to make a playoff. I guess that's what this idea is. I haven't heard that before. That's an interesting one. Let's see. If Drinkwitz wants to be in the college football playoff and have a chance for a national championship, then like Damian says, just win your regular season games. Stop asking for handouts or easier ways. Work hard and earn it in the regular season. War Eagle.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for texting. I think that was Trey who texted that in. Thank you.
Yeah.
For your comments this morning. Let's see. Okay, see, Mad Dog's chiming in. He's asking, have y'all mentioned the Stallions news over the weekend? Okay, so I saw something where they were trying to sell 5,000 season tickets, and they think that that's going to keep the Stallions in Birmingham. And look, if that happens, that's great. But I didn't think that was like an official.
Right. I didn't know that was like a Stallions printed thing.
No, I think that was like a fan support thing.
Right.
That has folded over. But yeah, go support the Stallions. Absolutely. Let's see. Lee in West Georgia. He says, you spoke about teams with new starting quarterbacks and you left off Texas. He's now part of the Mandela effect. People think he's been a starter at Texas. It's crazy. I mean, that's fair. I did leave him off. To be fair, he has started 2 games at Texas. But yes, I mean, he is technically a new starter this year. That was a good point. Jimmy says, playoffs should follow the NFL model as close as possible. Rank teams 1 through 14 get in since there are more than 2 conferences. 1 and 2 get the bye, and 3 through 14 battle it out in a wild card round however you want. It's stupid simple. Appreciate y'all chiming in. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 a.m., but McElroy and Kubik in the morning is up.